Hello and welcome to High Point Music. My name is Lewis, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a little bit of a shootout between the Swedish chainsaw, one of the updated distortion models in version 3 of the Helix firmware, and a black label Boss HM2. Cool. Let's jump into it. So the HM2 was a very sought after pedal in the more Swedish kind of Norwegian metal scene, that chainsaw kind of sound that it's obviously the copy of Line 6 is named for, has been synonymous with a lot of really chunky and heavy guitar playing. It doesn't tend to be a wall of sound distortion, it tends to more be quite a focused tone and quite an aggressive tone. Certainly not a modern distortion tone by today's standards, but very, very popular. I probably should show you what it sounds like. Today I'm playing my Les Paul Custom. I am running through my Line 6 HX Stomp, and today I'm using the Lone Star model, which is the Cali, they call it the Texas model the Cali Texas. So the Cali Texas is based on the Mesa Boogie Lone Star, a little bit warmer than some of the other Mesa Boogie amps in the model range there. A particular model I've really liked, so I've dialed it up for today's settings. Just to give you an idea, this is what the clean tone of that sounds like. Cool, not very metal riff, Lewis, but that's clean tone. This is the HM2. I haven't got this dialed or dimed or anything particular, but just to give you an overall sort of idea of what it can do. Sounds like a palm muted distorted guitar. Very much so, very much so. I'll just pull those settings back a little more reasonably. I'm just going to set them about that 12 o'clock position on the knobs. One thing I should get into, or should briefly discuss before we get too far into it, is that as electronic components in effects pedals age, they tend to lose some of their properties. So while I wouldn't necessarily expect them to sound the same, I do expect that Line 6 have taken a fair bit into accommodation for component drift, and that should be evident in the models. So first of all, pop over here to our overhead view. You will see that I've got this foot switch set up for the Swedish chainsaw. If you can look at the screen, you'll notice at the moment the blue loop is on. The blue block is on. That's my effects loop. I've modified this foot switch to switch between the built-in Swedish chainsaw and the effects loop. Very simple, but makes it very easy to switch between the two units. So, So now when I jump between the effects block and the modeled block, if you pay attention to the color of the foot switch, yellow is the built-in pedal, blue is the external pedal. Excellent, excellent. So I started out pretty low gain with this model, just running the distortion about half, the EQ about half, and I've got a patch here set up to do the same. Now straight off the bat, cool, just use the line 6. That sounds excellent. With the current gain settings, I would use the HX Stomp version of this pedal every time, mostly because the HM2 is a little noisier, and the HM2 requires, without modification, requires a 12 volt DC power supply, which is one of the features of some of these older Boss pedals. They don't actually run on 9 volts, they run on 12, but by having that little bit of a change in the power supply, you've got to have a modulated unit, or you've got to have a booster or something there to take care of it. Seems like a lot of effort when you could just dial that thing at noon and have it sound very similar to my current setting. So now we've got a little bit more gain dialed in. I'll run through some pickup combinations just to show you those as well. You'll see my settings over here when I go to the drive, bass and treble. I've adjusted the volume to suit, but they're probably the more relevant settings to pay attention to. This is the current setting on the HM2 that will start us off, and then I'll switch over to the line 6 and back and forth as we go. Here we go. Second verse, same as the first. I think we're starting to notice that the line 6 with a little bit more gain has a bit more presence. It doesn't quite have the same bass response. It is a little bit difficult to dial the knobs because obviously a knob only has 270 degrees of angle, whereas the controls on the line 6 are more 1 to 10. So I'm making adjustments based on my ear as well. But so far, I have no reason not to use the HM2 in the line 6. I will push the gain a little bit harder. Let's get this thing dimed. A very common setting, apparently, it's a little heavy for me, but is to have this thing completely flat chat. So I'll replicate that and play a couple more riffs, and that should bring us to the end of the video. Let's check it out. So over here, you'll see I've got my gain, treble, and my bass settings on the HM2 completely dimed. This is supposed to be the classic chainsaw tone. I've adjusted the volume to be appropriate, but I bet most people would crank that as well. And when we pop over here, I've got the same kind of settings dialed up here on the HM2 in the line 6, the Swedish chainsaw. I've got the drive, the bass, and the treble all on 10. At the moment, again, the blue loop is the real HM2, and the orange block or the yellow block is the built-in HM2. Riff, Lewis, riff. I would say that's fairly conclusive that the tone shift in that top end range is happening a little more on the Boss than on the Line 6. Again, I'm going to put it down to component drift, but the heavy metal itself has seemed to develop a bit of this boxy, a little more mid-range kind of focused tone, and I think that works really well for some of that really chunky guitar playing. I wouldn't drop $300 odd on a black label Boss HM2 if you've got a HX Stomp. I think the functionality that is there far outweighs the difference in tone, and you could certainly dial the EQ in to get it that way. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I certainly had a lot of fun making it. I had a lot of fun trying to practice some of those metal palm muting riffs as well. Good times. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, give us a like, drop a comment, let us know any feedback or suggestions you may have. You can support us by following the links below as well. Thank you again for watching. Rock out. Have a good day.